Welcome to Teen Talk. In this entire segment of the podcast and talk show, I plan on talking about the pandemic and how my life as a teen in Hong Kong during the pandemic has changed. In episode 1 and throughout this entire podcast, I make sure to cover what happened to me and to Hong Kong in general, and follow up with how that all connects to my life and other people's lives and how we've all changed from it. So I think in general, I try to talk about the negatives of COVID, how it impacted everybody's lives in a huge way, and then also a couple of positives and how COVID helped be a part of my life and help me find me. So for the first episode, I really want to talk about the shock of the whole first wave portion of COVID. I remember we had this family vacation that we all planned in April 2020. My family was going to go, but then it was just completely withdrawal because of COVID, and in general it was just crazy to think about, because I remember saying to my mom, like, when COVID hit, there's no way that we're gonna cancel this vacation. It's 2 months from now. What can happen in 2 months that can change everything? And that's something I always remember me saying, because thinking about that, over 2 years from that time, my life is still not gone back to how it was, and it's still completely different in so many ways, that I think a lot of negative ways, but also I changed as a person throughout COVID in a positive way, which is what I really want to talk about, how both of those brought me together and made me the person that I am. The shock of COVID, I think it was crazy for me and for all my friends, all my students, all not my students, but all the students in HKS. It was crazy because even the teachers were shocked, my family was shocked, everyone was just completely confused, I think, at the beginning, because I remember late 2019 and early 2020, it just sort of emerged into our lives. During this time, I think it was the changes in our daily life that was really what switched up for us. I think there was curfews. I remember we were not allowed to go eat in restaurants past 6 p.m., which I think took an impact on all the people running businesses, trying to start something up, a small business or a big business. It's hard to do that when, especially if it's like a restaurant, past 6 p.m. is when I eat dinner, when I think a lot of people eat dinner. So it's difficult to be able to run a business like that. And it didn't just change people's mental health and things, but it changed people's livelihood. And of course, it obviously was just a humongous part of our lives that it's unforgettable at this point. It's going to be something that years down the line we're going to remember. And I remember we just couldn't do anything at the time of the first wave, because Hong Kong did, I think, a really good job at reacting really fast to COVID and putting in a lot of laws that I think helped contain the virus at the time, and it helped us to sort of adjust to it. We didn't get to go to school, we didn't get to stay and eat at restaurants past 6 p.m. and going out, masks were obviously a thing, staying in small groups. There were a lot of laws that were implemented to help us adjust to COVID, but not just help us, obviously, to prevent the spread of it. One thing that I remember is the impact it had on education. That was absolutely crazy to think about. There was online learning, which at the time I was a 7th grader. I didn't know what Zoom was. I didn't really use Hangouts ever. I was honestly not the type of kid that spent a lot of time on their electronics, so overall, with that entire aspect, I was so new to it. Never been too good at technology either, so it was difficult to join a class at a set time, sort of follow a schedule that I had adjusted to on a campus with people around me to help me, by doing it all by myself, cooped up in my room as I'm gonna say 12-year-olds, and learning school online. And I think there was just no more handwriting, there was all typing, no more social interaction at all, which is so difficult to do all of it when you're cooped up in your room learning on your computer. And it was difficult because I also didn't have friends really to support that much, and I think I can say this, it goes for everyone. Not being able to see your friends during lunch, not being able to talk or vent to your friend was something that's not really too talked about in the whole COVID aspect. Not a lot of people think about how we switched completely from being able to see your friend every day to seeing them either on a computer screen or not seeing them for months or almost a year, which is totally crazy, because I think it was really difficult to not be able to see all of my friends, because the group of people and the people I chose to surround myself in 7th grade are the same people that I interact with now. And I think I did a great job at choosing friends that were there to support me throughout everything. The stress that we all had, seeing each other at lunch was honestly the highlight of my school day. In pre-adolescence, being able to communicate with other teenagers. As I think someone that's 12 to 14 years old, you sort of are starting to learn who you want to surround yourself with, and picking people that you want to keep as friends in your high school experience is really important. And not being able to see them in school is just totally different. I think all the years before us, students got to stay in high school, stay in middle school, meet their friends, and communicate in face to face. And having to do that over the computer, obviously it's really difficult to make new friends virtually. I think I did okay in that portion of making friends, but I feel like if we were in person, I would have maybe been able to expand and meet other people with different interests or similar interests. Even when we were in school, it was difficult because they had implemented more laws, especially HKIF, which they did a great job of implementing, the dividers and the two-person proceeds, which I totally understood was a requirement to prevent the spread. But I think that also was damaging to being able to talk to people. I remember my friend group and a lot of other friend groups at the balcony and outside, we all sort of split up into pairs, and there was still dividers between us, and it felt so limiting in a way that it was difficult to be able to communicate with them the way that we had before, the way that we were used to in 6th grade. So now I'm going to talk about the biggest change for me had to be probably my training. As an athlete, I think someone who was getting really into sports in middle school, I had started and grown my love in between 4th and 5th grade, and then I was really excited to go to middle school because my brother and all my older friends were talking about how, oh my goodness, you're gonna love middle school. There's 6th, 7th, 8th grade, you can join cross-country teams, you can join swim teams, you go to APAC, you can travel, you can represent HKIS, and representing a school sounded so magical to me because I had never done anything of the such, and I was really excited. Going into 6th grade, I got to join all these teams, I got to meet people that did what I did every day and work together as a team. I got to meet coaches. I got to have people motivating me to be better at what I love to do. And that was really inspiring, which is why 6th grade was probably my favorite year because it was just so amazing. Honestly, transferring from a different school and then getting to do all these new things was totally different and crazy for me. And when we were drawn back from doing all of that in 7th grade, there was no more team practices. All of the laws were implemented where we weren't allowed to be in groups over 2. We had to wear masks when we go outside. No more exercising in beaches. Pools are closed. Tracks are closed. All of that restricted me from doing my sport, which was triathlon and, of course, running and swimming and all of that. And I had to start running by myself outside or doing Zoom workouts, which I thought I would be okay with. I thought it would be better for me to learn as an athlete by being independent. But being independent wasn't something that helped me in the long run. I sort of wasn't as motivated because I had all these people around me pushing me to go faster, pushing me to be better, and having that all taken away from me, I don't think benefited me in the process. This whole inconsistency in training and working out wasn't something that helped me, I think, at all. I remember in the first wave, it was so different for me because I had been so used to just working out with a whole group for the years before that. And overall, I do think that there were some upsides and some lifts for me from COVID. For example, my family in general was pretty delighted when it came down to finding time to spend with one another, finding time to spend with my brother, my mom, my dad. It was difficult because we all had such different schedules. My dad would go to work, my mom would go meet with her friends, knit, do what moms do, and then my brother would have his sports and his school to focus on. So it was difficult, and throughout COVID, we were sort of forced to live in an apartment together, staying at home, and of course, having two teenagers living in a house with adults, it was stressful sometimes, and there were arguments, but there were also a lot of bonding moments for me, which I'll forever remember throughout COVID. I think it helped me to sort of realize how important it is to spend time with my family. So I think overall this brings me to how this whole first wave allowed me to find myself a little bit too, because spending time alone, not with friends, and just alone in my room allowed me to brainstorm and find my interests that weren't just going out and spending time with friends or doing sports. It allowed me to discover my love for fashion. It allowed me to discover this whole art industry and writing and reading. And then when I discovered reading, I got really into it, reading all sorts of different things, finding my genre, finding my loves, and that was really important to me because it allowed me to find who I really was without having people around me to sort of influence me. It was just me, myself, and I. And I think that and spending time with my family were two of the biggest ups for me and lifts for me throughout COVID, but I do think it was really difficult in general for the first wave wrapping up. In general, I think it was a difficult time, not for me, but for everybody in HKS and for everybody around me. It's difficult to have such a drastic change in your life within literally a couple of months. And I didn't get to go to school in middle school, which I think it's important to go to school, especially in middle school is when you're sort of maturing, becoming a teenager, and sort of moving out of this whole childhood kids segue and pulling myself into adulthood, young adulthood. Overall, first wave of COVID-19 allowed me to find myself and also took me away from having the experience that I desired as a teenager sometimes. So thank you for listening to episode 1. Episode 2 will be coming out soon too, so tune in for that episode, and I hope you enjoyed listening. So bye.